Welcome to Crosstown Cardboard episode 10. I'm Carmine at Carmine's Cards, the broadcaster, and that's Craig at New York City Sports Cards, the teacher, the soccer coach. We're already cracking up. I think we rambled on for about 25 minutes before starting our recording because the Wolfpack is all together for episode 10. And the topic here is card life balance. How do you balance the time for your cards? How do you balance the time for your life? And so before we get into that, and our first ever guest on the Crosstown Cardboard podcast, which could not have been any better, we just wanted to throw this out there to please like and subscribe on YouTube. We're getting up there. I think we're close to 60 subscribers. And thank you to everybody who's sticking around and hanging out with us. And also subscribe and give a 5-star rating on any podcast. Tell a friend and just keep this hobby community growing and pumping our positivity, which has become a phrase ever since our last episode. So, Craig, how do you plan on introducing our esteemed number one guest here?
Not only is this guy a great friend, also, how could I forget? Carmine, great to see you. Hope you're having a great night.
Yeah, you too. Thank you.
Not only is this guest a great friend, he is such a positive influence on the hobby. He works hard, he does the right thing, and he comes from a really good place. So when we talk about balancing the positivity in the hobby and real life, there's really no other perfect person for it. So I guess it's time to introduce our good friend, Rob Girard, the sports card therapist. Rob, how are you doing tonight?
Craig, and Carmine. What is going on, guys? Thank you so much for having me on. It's an honor to be your first guest on the show. I appreciate that introduction. It's great to be the first guest because immediately I became a fan of your podcast, and it's not just because we're friends, but I mean, you guys are putting out seriously some of the best content in the hobby already at only episode 10. So, just keep doing what you guys are doing.
Thanks, Rob. That means a lot. And we definitely consider you our big brother in the hobby. Uncle Rob, maybe. We have Cousins Collectibles and we have Uncle Rob. So you mentioned recently, Rob, that you're doing all these roundtables, like Craig mentioned. You're doing so much good for the hobby. And I couldn't believe the stats that you rattled off when people were talking about the Spotify streams and putting that on their story. And the stat that stuck out to me was that you're in the top 10% of the most followed podcasts of any category. And also, you've put out the top 5% of podcast minutes created in the leisure category. And so that leads me to the question of, what does your balance look like between your two young kids? Because we know we have a lot of family-oriented people, whether it's girlfriends, wives, kids, jobs, responsibilities. How do you balance all that productivity in your content creation with your two young kids and your wife?
I tell you, man, I wish I had an answer for that. I don't think I do it perfectly. That's something that I know is it's kind of like a daily balancing act for me. Sometimes it feels like, I've my wife definitely gets on me about spending too much time on cards, or spending too much time with the podcast. She'll be straight up and she'll tell me, and some days she's really cool with it and super proud of like what I've been able to do, and then other days she's like, freaking cards, and that's all she has to say is like cards. So I think like what I've tried to do is I've tried to minimize the amount of time on my phone, and really like, okay, when it's family time, I need to make sure it's family time and I'm disconnected. And I'm not saying I'm perfect at that, because there are times where I could be like a teenage girl, on my phone, and it's not even so much the social media. It's like eBay, it's just sitting there scrolling. Like I can get lost just scrolling auctions for hours. And my wife's like, why do you enjoy looking at cards that you don't own or that you're not going to buy? And I'm like, I mean, I love window shopping. I love being able to just kind of, stroll around a card show and look at cards and just admire them for the pieces of art that they are. So,
think
so
that
to answer your question, I haven't figured out a balance. It's something I still struggle with on a day-to-day basis. But the fact, though, that I am aware of the fact I need to actually continue to work on it, that's a good thing. It's a lot better than being oblivious. You know what I mean? I'm in that preparation / action stage of change. They talk about stages of change. And for everything in life, we're in a stage of change, you know? So like, if I'm like, I need to be on a diet, that says right there, I'm probably in preparation or action, because I'm figuring out what I need to do to maybe lose weight. But if I'm sitting there in complete denial about it, that's like stage 1, that's pre-contemplation. So it's good that I'm at least aware, like, okay, I need to constantly be trying to balance my life, because I don't want to, ruffle the feathers with my wife. I want to make sure I'm paying enough attention to my kids. I don't want to look back on, 10 years from now with my kids and be like, oh my God, I spent all that time freaking making podcasts. Like, I don't want to do that.
Right.
So it is kind of like a daily, like, let me take my inventory and make sure I'm still on the pedestal kind of thing.
Yeah, I think that self-awareness is pretty valuable, and it's different for everyone. Like, you're a family man, you got your kids, you got your wife, you got your job, but balancing it looks different for everyone. For me, it's time with my wife, my job. I don't have kids yet. Then you go even younger, kids who are in high school or in the hobby. Don't forget your homework. Don't forget your responsibilities you have to do at home. So it's like what you said, having that self-awareness. But just to paint the picture, when you say spending too much time on cards, obviously we all do it differently, but generally speaking, would you say it's fair to say that's like scrolling through Instagram and or eBay and then shows on the weekends and maybe some YouTube content?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, so I think probably the most of my time is probably spent, if I'm on my phone, it's probably like putting together collages and trying to kind of like, in order to promote my next upcoming episode, because typically I have about 2 episodes a week that I'm putting out, so some of them are easy, some of them are not as easy to make. So I'm putting collages together, scrolling Instagram for sure. I've been trying to spend less time on Instagram though, because that can kind of, get you sucked in.
Guilty.
But I am just always consuming content though. So even when I don't have my phone open, a lot of times I'll have like my earbud in, and I'll have it right in my ear and I'll be listening to podcasts. I mean, there's probably like 5 to 7 main sports card podcasts that I listen to a week. And as soon as I wake up in the morning, even if I'm home and I'm just kind of walking around making my coffee, maybe throwing a load of laundry and that type of thing, I'm listening to content. Like, no matter what I'm doing, it's like I'm listening to it. And it's just because I cannot get enough of cards.
Yeah, I'm the same exact way. And a lot of times it's the Sports Card Therapist podcast, or re-listening to ours, Cousins Collectibles, the newest members of the Wolfpack, Stacking Slabs with Brett and people like that. And one of the things that I've been talking about with my regular therapist about, consuming content and not being overwhelmed is like meditation practices and trying to figure out that balance of how to not be always consuming stuff and absorbing information. So I was curious, especially from a therapist's perspective, Rob, since that is your day job, what do you do when you feel overwhelmed with all the sports cards, with your responsibilities to the hobby and family, to get a little off time and recharge the batteries?
Yeah, good question, man. I think on a bigger life perspective, so I used to practice a lot of 4 square breathing, and that's basically like, closing your eyes, taking a slow deep breath in for 4 seconds, holding your breath for 4 seconds, slowly letting it out for 4 seconds, holding it for 4 seconds. You think about what a box looks like. Basically, each line is 4 seconds, and you just go around and around kind of thing. But I think sometimes, I mean, it's really good to just disconnect sometimes, but I'd be lying if I said I disconnect a lot, because I have figured out a way to, I think, pack 7 pounds of crap into a 5-pound bag, so it's like I truly don't feel overwhelmed or burnt out by the hobby. Craig and I were on the phone the other night, and we were talking about how last year, probably about 9 months or so ago, I think we had both. It was weird because I do remember it being around the same time that we both kind of hit this point where we were feeling burnt out. And it wasn't so much on the hobby as a whole, but we were feeling burnt out with our flips, because we were both kind of in that mode of just like flipping. It's like, before I even get the card in the mail, it's already sold to someone else type thing. You know what I mean? And it took away, I think, from the cards when I was doing that. But at the same time, it was fun. It's a rush. And, I think I was feeding off of Craig's energy, and I'm sure he was feeding off of mine, because we'd be in the Wolfpack chat, just like, check out my next pickup, check out my next pickup, check out my next pickup. And so I had to take a step back and ask myself kind of what Craig has said multiple times, and just said it on my pod last week. He said, like, what do I want my collection to look like 10 years from now? Because when I was doing all that flipping, there was a lot of cards in those flips that I would have loved to have in my 10-year collection. But I was so wrapped up in flipping that I just moved it just to move it. So I don't want to say that I disconnect or unplug from the hobby or really from social media, because I think I do balance it in a way to where it feels balanced. But I have had to take a step back from the dealer side, from the flipping standpoint, because I just want to enjoy the cards.
Good point you make about the disconnecting. It is hard. It's hard to just go a day and not scroll through Instagram and do the cards, but at the same time, we're lucky we have a hobby. I've had people say to me, like, "Oh, I'm jealous. Like, I wish I had something I was like that passionate about, or that type of hobby," because you do try to disconnect from life sometimes, but it is a part of our lives. Like, I'll be honest. I was at a wedding this summer. Was that the wedding? Yes, it was in Buffalo. We were talking about Josh Allen earlier. There you go. And I remember the middle of the wedding. I vaguely remember because like it was midnight at this point, and I actually sold the card on eBay. Couldn't help myself. So, but I think taking a step back sometimes and thinking like, all right, what are my responsibilities in life? Am I doing a good job at work? Am I, spending the right amount of time with my family? Well, as long as I'm doing all that, then the time that I'm spending on the cards doesn't get in the way, then we're all good.
I feel like sometimes too, when you have so much going on, like Rob, you were talking about packing 7 pounds of crap into a 5-pound bag, it almost reinvigorates you more. Like if you're tired and you go work out, now your blood's oxygenated, you feel like you're ready to go, and you're actually more energized than you were before you expended this energy. And I feel like sometimes with the hobby too, it seems like that can be just something to do. And like I talked about on our earlier Mount Rushmore episode, which we just found out, Rob, you have a tattoo of Mount Rushmore, which is awesome. One of my Mount Rushmore things was it's something productive you can do with your time, as far as like reasons why we love the hobby. And but it can't be like too much with the flip, like you guys were saying too. And I feel like the market of cards taking a little bit of a dip recently has made it easier to go after things that you like rather than just flipping and flipping and flipping.
Yeah, and very well said, man. And I think like I was thinking about 6 to 9 months ago, and I'm like, man, if this market keeps on going down, I'm gonna really start picking up some big grail cards. But then now that like I'm here and I'm in it, I'm like, well, I don't know if I want to spend 10 grand on a Babe Ruth when for all I know it could be worth 8 grand 2 months from now.
Right.
So I don't know if I don't know when the right time is to make a big grail purchase. So what I have been doing is I've been trying to figure out different smaller side PCs that I like. So I feel like I've been getting more enjoyment from that than even all those flips I was doing last year. You know what I mean? Like, so Mickey Mantle is on the top of my PC pyramid. So instead of putting all my money into really high-end Mickey Mantle cards, I'm being a bit more cautious, holding back, and I started building a Phil Rizzuto PC. You know, he played second base on the same World Series winning teams as the Mick did, you know, and I grew up listening to him commentate the Yankee games. So I have a connection to Phil Rizzuto as well. And so I can still collect from that era, from the same team, and still really celebrate and learn about those World Series wins of my favorite team. But I don't need to put a ton of money into these high-end cards when I don't know where the floor is going to be, if that makes sense.
When you said Phil Rizzuto, I thought of the scene from Billy Madison when he's writing Rizzuto on the chalkboard, but he doesn't know how to write Z's. I really hope you get that reference.
You're the first person, and I've talked about my Phil Rizzuto PC a lot. You are the first person to ever bring up that Billy Madison reference, and I never made that connection before. It is hilarious.
Rizzuto?
You just did the little scribbles instead. Riz.
That's funny. And I'll tell you what, Rob, from personal experience, as far as, you know, saying high-end cards, this is a Tiger Woods rookie auto SP Authentic, if you're not watching on YouTube, numbered out of 274 that I got from Dave over at Extraordinary Cards. And it's a great rookie auto of a GOAT, right? And a BGS 9.5 on-card auto.
I need
this
that
card, but just to pay off your point, Rob, when you're saying, where's the floor of this market? When I traded for this card, we valued it around $7K. Guess what the recent comps were on it? $4K.
Whoa.
Yeah. Which I think that is not only due to the market. I mean, golf is hardly ever talked about, let alone when it's in, you know, fall and winter and the season's over and done with. So I think that has a lot to do. You know, Tiger Woods hasn't had any controversies and he's not on the golf course. So, you know, I think that has a lot to do with why that card's going down. But, you know, I don't know what, like, just to pay off your point of, you know, not wanting to stash your money into a big card, not knowing where the floor is. That's one thing. And I was like, ooh, wow. Because those comps were like this week. And I looked at it. I was like, man, but you know what? I'm okay holding that card, like the cards behind you and the cards behind Craig, because, you know, we really like these guys and these cards and feel like there's long-term value there. But it still hurts to see, you know, that comp that's like 60% of what it was before.
If it makes you feel any better, Carmine, I traded for a card at 625 value roughly 2 hours ago, and it sold 5 minutes ago for 450. So, you know, sometimes you got to take one on the chin.
Yeah, no kidding.
It's still a card I like, and like that Tiger Woods, it was a while ago that you traded for it. It almost kind of feels like a sunk cost at this point. This is what you have. This is your collection. What you do with it next, we'll see. But I mean, it's still incredible Tiger Woods card to have.
Yeah.
Well, and I think did you trade for that Tiger Woods? Like how?
Yeah.
You don't need to tell me the amount of cash, but what percentage was cash?
Oh, no, that's okay. We valued my trade for 3,600 and I added 3,600 of cash, but I'm really into it for about 4,850 because I was into the cards I traded really at a really good value. So
yeah, definitely, man.
Yeah.
And
So
the thing is, I think if that is one of the few hacks, I guess, if you want to call it a hack, you know, around paying full comps for a card now or whatever comps are, right? It's like Craig, if I'm going to make a trade with you, you know, my card that's going to be down 50% a month from now for your card that's going to be down 50% a month from now, that's kind of an even thing, you know. But for me to just come out of my pocket and pay 7K cash and then have it drop to 4, that would be like a kick to the old jubblies, you know what I mean? So
I'm glad I didn't do that.
Yeah. So, you know, the fact though that, you know, you were in the trade for so little, that's nice, you know, and I do love the idea of being able to trade. I really do. You know, I think,
You're trading cards.
Yeah, exactly. Definitely trading cards. And Ken Sports Card Lessons, a fellow Wolfpack member, just had a great episode last week, and I'm not bringing him up just to plug him either, because his episode, I actually told him last week, I said, dude, that was one of the best episodes you've ever put out. It was called like the unwritten rules of trading, or are there any rules with
Who
trading?
makes the rules?
Yeah, I heard that.
Oh yeah, who makes the rules, man? And
Yep.
I was like, I saw the title of the episode. I knew it would be a good episode because Ken always puts out good content. So I didn't question whether or not it would be good. But in my mind, I thought I already knew what he was probably going to say. It's like I figured I probably knew what the show was going to consist of. But man, the way that he broke it down, and it's true. It really is like the Wild West out there. And I think if you have good hobby etiquette and the other person has good hobby etiquette, it's not about getting the better of what in the deal. I think it's about, making deals with people that both sides are happy with. If I have a Jackie Robinson and the guy across from me has a Mickey Mantle and the comps are right around the same, I have no problem if I lose, maybe 5% value, because I really want that Mickey Mantle and he wants my Jackie, and I know that's going to a good home. So, and if cards are going down, both our cards are probably going down. So, I think trading is still a great way to not really lose money in this hobby and still be able to curate our collection.
Well said.
100%. And Craig always says too that the greatest deals are when both people are happy. I mean, that's what I want to say.
Definition of a good trade. Both people are happy.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's a perfect time to do that, like you said, Rob. And Craig, you looked like you had a point that you wanted to make.
No, I was gonna talk about something completely irrelevant to what we were just discussing.
Oh, that's fine, because originally the topic was card life balance. We stayed on that for about 30 seconds. This is better.
This is why you're so good at transitions. You just laid it up for me to then continue talking about work-life balance, but in a different way. So we kind of went into the importance of balancing both and being self-aware, but how about like cards and not life balance, but in inclusion? Maybe Rob, you're a good example. You have kids. Do you make them a part of cards? Do you make cards a part of their life? Maybe a little young, but even something as simple as sometimes when I'll get packs from Target, my wife will open the packs and she'll say the team name and I'll have to guess the player. So we have a little fun with it.
That's fun.
Oh.
So maybe there's something like you do with your kids, or I don't know if your wife's into it at all. Carmine, like I know your girlfriend jumps for joy over your pickups. So
she's always very, very excited.
So yeah, I mean, I know one thing, and I'm actually, one of my roundtables this week, coming up on Friday, is going to be with the women in the hobby. So I have a great roundtable discussion that's coming up about that, and just talking about women's inclusion in the hobby, and I know that so I have a 2.5-year-old daughter, I have a 6-month-old son, and I'm hoping my son's involved in cards, right? But I'm also really hoping my daughter's involved in cards. My daughter knows what my cards are. She holds my cards. There's been a few times where I've come home with some pretty big cards. Like my 51 Bowman Mickey Mantle. First thing I did when I came home after I got that was I gave it to her to hold and start playing around with it. And just kind of looking at it, and she's good with it. It's not like she's not going to chuck it or Gronk spike it, so she's pretty good with it, but it means, I know how much that card means to me, and the fact that she's playing with that card, that means the world to me. It's almost like introducing your fiance to your parents for the first time. It's like it means so much to you to see this meeting take place. So it means so much to me to see my daughter holding a card that means so much to me. It sounds like, I think unless you've like really, really been there, it sounds kind of hokey, and I'm not trying to make it sound too, get too emotional with it, but it is something really cool. And I hope that the hobby becomes a place where females and girls and teenage girls, not just boys, but like really feel comfortable and really feel like it could be their place. I think about how many kids, how many boys have come up to my table saying, hi, I'm doing the trade up challenge. You have anything you would trade for this? I haven't had a single girl come up to me though and say that, and that's something I'm kind of thinking about. I would love to see the hobby get to that place.
I was going to say, I thought someone was cutting onions in here for a little bit, but I want to share.
Leave the jokes to Carmine. Leave the jokes to Carmine. Listen, Carmine can't miss with the jokes. Okay, Greg.
I'm sorry. I'm just trying to bat.
Craig is the looks.
Stick to your white shorts. Okay.
Craig has the looks. He can't have everything. I mean, come on.
That's true. That's true.
I do want to shout out. We love shout outs on here. Lakeside Collects on Instagram. Lakeside Collects. Dan Ogilvy. He's a fellow educator.
Oh yeah, Dan. He's reached out to me before.
So he's a great guy, and we talk about balancing cards with your family, but he does a really good job at including his kids. So they would do this thing where they get a new card, and he would film his kids talking about the card and the player, and like what an amazing way to balance your love for the hobby with your family by just merging the two together. And you're getting a little taste of that, Rob, when your daughter holds that Bowman Mickey Mantle. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, that seems like a natural thing to just want to do, like combine two things. Like you said, your fiance meeting your parents, or your college friends meeting your home friends, or like, my girlfriend, speaking of how excited she was about cards, she goes to all my city league basketball games here in Medford, Oregon. And she was so excited about that one that we beat a team by 25 this last Sunday. And I was like, oh, honey, did you see, I was scoring, I was passing, all that, rebounding, defense. She's like, oh, it's actually good that I didn't see a lot of your plays because you guys lost, right? And I was like, no, we won by 25. Anyway, it's just that to say that I appreciate, having her, who I care about so much, watch me do something that I care about so much. And it just seems like when you have those two things come together, it's like just like some synergy that takes place that you really can't explain.
I'm picturing that scene from Dodgeball where the guy like looks up in the crowd and sees his wife talking to like a much better looking man.
Yeah, the guy with the glasses, yeah. So and then I'm out there getting all angry.
Like, sees his wife talking to some guy, and Carmine just grabs the ball, runs on the court, and does like a two-handed windmill dunk and like crashes back and forth.
Yeah, that'll show her. Oh my gosh, I couldn't believe when she said that. I said I got to use that for something, and it came out on the podcast, so that's good.
Love it.
You should be thanking her for the free content.
Yeah, that's the feeling I felt, was thankful.
So it's kind of like so me being a big Seinfeld fan. Are either of you guys big Seinfeld fans?
I can't quote it. I've seen many episodes. I'll turn on if I have nothing, and I work 5 blocks from the soup place.
No soup for you, Rob. You shouted out some of those cards you picked up.
You know what? Yes, I actually have a autograph by him, but we'll save that for another day. So what George did was he combined his love of like all things and combined his love of sex with food. So and television. So what he did was he brought a little portable TV with him underneath the blankets as he was having sex. Then he was like, and for the trifecta. And he was eating a pastrami sandwich so like I'm just picturing like Craig's like wife like opening packs and being like, guess the team.
Yes, that's the exact tone.
While the World Cup is on at the same time.
While the World Cup is on, that's like the trifecta, and then he's got the white shorts on.
The World Cup's ending. Now what am I going to do? I need a new routine. Let me show you a card real quick, and I'm going to explain why. This is a Vladimir Guerrero rookie card from Topps Fire. Why am I showing you this, and why do I even own it? Maybe a year.
I love people ask questions, then answer their own questions.
Well, I'm sure everyone at home is like, what's going on with this Vladimir Guerrero rookie card? I need to know more.
Cliffhanger. You know what? You know what you should do is you should end the story and finish it next week, so people have to listen next week.
He's done that
episode
before.
11.
We're ready for your JJ Redick story. Remember, you teased the audience.
Yeah, that's definitely happening next time. But in all seriousness, the Vlad card. When my wife was my girlfriend at the time, like many years ago, it was the first time, and I guess now that I think about it, the only time that she brought me home cards. She surprised me from Target, and I always used to call them baseball cards. I think everyone's kind of in agreement there that we didn't call it sports cards until relatively recently. Like back in the day, it was I collect baseball cards.
Well, or I mean, I would call it basketball cards if we were talking basketball.
Yeah, if you're like, look at this Dan Marino baseball rookie card I just got.
Well, thank you for leading me right into the story. Is I would always say baseball cards, even though I collected all sports, because that's just kind of the umbrella name was baseball cards. So she brought me home a baseball blaster box, which I didn't really collect baseball. So instead of being like, "Oh wow, thank you so much," my reaction was like, "Baseball," and she didn't take too kindly to that, and I felt really bad after the fact. I should have been more appreciative of the blaster, whatever sport it was. So as a consolation prize, I kept this card, which came from the blaster, and that was the first time my wife brought me home some cards.
It surprises me, Craig, because usually you're such a gentleman.
I know. I slipped in that moment, but she still chose to marry me, so we're all good now.
Yeah. So you had to get your card life balance back in order by spending a lot more time and possibly money on your girlfriend
to balance out possibly money due to your slip up.
No wonder there's been no cards brought home since then.
Oh, that's funny. And I love the I think our laughs per minute is at a max for all of our episodes. So that's one of the great things of having a friend on the podcast. So I was curious, Rob, you mentioned your PC, and we know you're John Stockton, you're Phil Rizzuto, you're Mean Gene Okerlund, the WWE legendary announcer. And so I was curious because you've been posting in the Wolfpack group chat about what you're picking up for show inventory or inventory to move on social media. And I was curious what you're picking up just to share with our audience and why those cards are the ones you're getting.
I tell you what, man, one thing I'm starting to notice and is it's like, so yes, I have my PC of cards that I, love and want to keep forever, or for a long time. And then I have stuff that I consider my show inventory. Right. And usually what I do is this. So on the bottom row of my case, right, all these cards that you see like sitting behind me, I bring to shows. Okay. I bring those to shows. I usually post them way over comps to the point where no one even asks about them. But people do, if they listen or watch the show, the podcast, whatever, a lot of times people come up and they'll, the LeBron that I got, the big LeBron that was like a big part of my season too. People walk up, they'll say, there it is, just like that.
You're sure they're not talking about you?
Yeah, I know, right? So I do enjoy drawing attention by having like a really fire bottom row to the case, and it's a great conversation starter and all that stuff. But what I realize is the stuff that I think people want for show inventory, they don't want. The stuff that they want is like my PC stuff. So it's like people want what they want, and like I can't outthink collectors. So it's like chances are if I don't want it, chances are they don't want it either. You know what I mean? So like I went on a spree probably about 4 months ago, and excuse me, I was buying up a bunch of nothing but quarterbacks and PSA slabs. I'm like, and base, it didn't matter. If I was getting it cheap, I was buying it because I'm like, okay, people are going to want to load up on quarterbacks. The market is down. People don't have a lot of money. People, these $30 to $60 quarterback cards are just going to be, they're going to fly off the shelf. Basically, it's going to be money in the bank for me. And I should have trusted my gut. You know what I mean? I should have trusted it and been like, don't even bother putting your money into these because no one's going to want them. And you know what? Guess what? No one wanted them. So what do I end up doing? I end up putting them all in a bargain box, and I probably got what I paid for them. So it was like money in the bank. It wasn't really like I didn't lose money, but I didn't make money. And then here I am kind of resetting my own inventory. And it does feel like, for me, so I started setting up at shows probably about 18 months ago, but the reason why I did is because I really wanted to get to know the hobby and I wanted content for the podcast, because after like 10 episodes of me doing the podcast, I felt like I was running out of things to talk about. As crazy as that sounds, right? It's like, what am I going to talk about? Like, I need a topic, and I'm writing out topics, and okay, I should cover this, I should cover that. Luckily, I had Craig there that, I was always bouncing ideas off of. I would always say to him, like, listen, man, you have any ideas? Throw me some ideas. Who should I bring on? Who should I invite on? So I actually owe a great deal, honestly, of my success to Craig. I really feel that way because he was someone that Birdman hand rub, because he was someone that really like was super supportive of me. He would give me feedback. He would point me in the direction of like good hosts, and I, a guy, with a jawline like that, how could you not trust him? And I trusted him, and that's just what it comes down to. So I started doing shows, and before you know it, it feels like every like 3 to 6 months, my show inventory, and I put that in quotes, my show inventory turns over. So just recently, I'm thinking about now putting my money into like flawless patches and stuff like that, and flawless cards, because I've done that before. I did that about a year ago. I had an entire case. It was nothing but national treasures and flawless patches. And the stuff
Wow.
was pretty good. It kind of sold. But the thing is that they're expensive, and it is what it is. So I don't know if that answered your question. I feel like I'm babbling, so I apologize if I am.
Well, what exactly are you? So in this generation of your show inventory, what stuff are you specifically looking for? Like the John McEnroe that you picked up was awesome recently, but like when you're looking at either lots to pick up or like players to buy, like
Listen,
what's the feel? What's the feel to pick up these
so
cards?
so the reason why I picked up that John McEnroe is because it's a 1985 Nike promo. So from the same exact set as the Jordan Nike promo. I forget who else was in there. Was it Dwight Gooden, McEnroe? I can't remember off the top of my head, but I mean, I saw that and I got it for relatively cheap. I got 2 of them for relatively cheap, and I was like, I'm gonna take it because why not? It's something cool. Like the fact that you're even mentioning it right now on a podcast tells me that like I probably made the right decision in getting it, because it was a really quirky kind of purchase. You know what I mean? And you guys before the show brought up one of my episodes previous just recently with Dan the Great Curator and Jeff from Jeff's Cards,
Yep.
and we talked about pop culture cards. And
Yeah.
so I always have wrestling. I always have wrestling because I love wrestling, and if I got stuck with all my inventory, I wouldn't be mad at that. So I always have wrestling, which I just learned, I guess, is considered a pop culture card. I guess wrestling isn't considered a sports card because it's not technically a sport. So
yeah, I'd say it's close. I'd say pop culture. I mean, with the guys with the personas larger than life, feels like that enters into the pop culture arena.
Kind of like you when you were commentating, when you were the sports broadcaster in Wyoming, you were like larger than life, like giving these guys identities, right? Like Thunder and Lightning and
right,
Rich and Creamy, and what was the other one?
no.
Rich and creamy.
I was not referring to any high school athletes as rich and creamy, but I did though. This kid, his name was Dante Wallace, and I called him Dante's Inferno. We had
really your only option there.
I know.
Just to tell you, here's my Chris Berman. Speaking of broadcasters and pop culture, this Chris Berman auto that I just got. But
now, was that an eBay find or a card?
No, this was included in a deal with Jonathan at Collectible Hits, and it was
He's a
included in a
broadcaster.
deal.
Chris Berman.
Yeah,
Chris Berman
Yeah.
is so.
and
There
that
you
was
go, connecting your life to the hobby yet again. You are a broadcaster. Here you are getting broadcaster cards, and one of the best to do it.
You know what? I heard Chris Berman's a real jerk, though, in real life. I don't know how true that is, but I heard he's like, I think if you go on YouTube, you could look up like worst Chris Berman moments, like, and it shows him like when he doesn't know the camera's rolling and he's just like a complete jerk.
I wonder if his card market is going to tank after you saying that.
I hope not. I hope not.
Don't deflate my cards, Rob. You're coming on our podcast and deflating, not pumping my cards, but deflating them.
Well, I didn't talk about Tiger Woods' multiple DUIs or anything like that.
Oh my! I tried to gloss over that. I said he didn't have any controversy. Oh my! But anyway,
no. Listen. The thing is, with Tiger Woods, though, everyone loves a good comeback story, right? And I'm someone that believes in second chances, third chances, fourth chances, fifth chances. You know what I mean? So, regardless if you guys made a mistake tomorrow, I firmly believe I would, forgive you, move on, and welcome you back with open arms. You know what I mean? Because anything short of killing someone, you know what I mean? It's like I think that we can. I don't know. I have a lot of forgiveness in my heart, man. I believe in 10 chances. And I think that's probably because I work with a lot of people, whether it's the homeless population or the inmate population, that have done some pretty horrific things. But I've gotten to know them through my job. I've gotten to know them on a really personal level. So, I look at people like, everyone has like some redeeming qualities about them. I don't think anyone's incapable of bouncing back from something.
Yeah. I agree. And I just was speaking of, your work, I was just out interviewing homeless people on the streets and in the parks of Medford.
You're a sports broadcaster. What are you doing out there?
Sports and news too. And so they're like,
you do news too?
Yeah. Oh, I'm on the evening news.
I thought you were trying to make a tragic joke for a moment.
No, my main job is evening news desk, 5, 6, and 11, anchoring and with the straight news. And I get to do sports on Fridays during basketball and football season. So, they were like, what story do you want to do for our ratings period? Our main period when we sell based on what our ratings are during this period. I said, let me go out and speak to homeless people on the streets and in the parks and find out like what really is the problem for them getting help in their own mind. And then bring those questions to our city leaders and find out, because they don't have a direct route to our city leaders from being homeless. They're trying to survive, let alone speak with city officials. And so that kind of, relates to what you were talking about through your job and second chances and a comeback story. And by the way, as we know, winning always cures everything. So, speaking of Tiger Woods, I'm like baffled sometimes at the things that athletes can overcome in the social media, public eye and topics of conversation by winning. I mean, look at Dennis Rodman too. Or guys like that, like just wild and crazy and doing everything under the sun. If you're winning, you're good.
Yeah.
Dennis Rodman has a daughter who's a star soccer player, Trinity Rodman. Just be on the lookout. That's all I'm saying.
Are you pumping Trinity Rodman on your own?
Wow.
I own 0 of her cards, but she does have a few. She's it.
He's like, let me pull one out real quick. Hold on.
I got 0.
What are we going to pump next? Bronny James? Hey, speaking of pop culture, Rob, you might like this one. The Game.
Is that Akon?
No, this is The Game.
Oh.
Numbered 1 out of 3. Pop Century.
1 out of 3.
I'm pumping. Are you pumping The Game?
The Hobby Game.
Nice. You had to think about that one for a second. I'm pumping.
You almost caught me.
I'm pumping Goldeen, the Pokemon. I'm telling you, she's going to evolve any second now.
What?
No, this was actually a gift for my niece, whose name is Goldie.
Yes,
her first card. Goldeen for Goldie.
Which
wow.
might be a good time to tease our next episode as we're coming up on 45 minutes here, but we're not quite done yet, I don't think. But our next episode, Craig, we're going to have our Secret Santa, And
Secret
I have
Santa
your
and-
present. I have your present waiting right over here. We're going to open up our presents for each other live on episode 11.
You guys sent each
And
other gifts already?
we did.
Yeah,
After
we had to record early.
After 9 dates. Come on, we took it.
And our 10th, we have a third wheel all of a sudden.
But
I'll third wheel it with you guys all day long, man. You guys,
that's
you guys have an incredible show, so I'll third wheel it any day of the week.
I hope we get a chance to all set up together. Us, the cousins, Ken, the pack, everyone, Shane. Get some dinner, talk some cards, do a show. I love the shows. Rob, we've only set up twice together, but those are some good quality shows. Shout out to Laz. Laz brings the people together.
Listen, so I think probably the best chance for anything like that to happen would have to be at National. And that's because Carmine is the wild card over here who lives in so Oregon or Oregon?
Oregon. My dad, he's from New York too, and he always says Oregon.
Yeah, that's how I pronounce it.
Yeah, the Oregon Trail.
Yeah, I say Oregon.
Yeah. So are you guys both going to National this year? It's never too early to start talking about National, by the way.
I haven't planned on it, but I'm not ruling it out.
Okay.
Hasn't crossed my mind. It's in the summer, right?
Yep. End of July. Let me guess, you have a wedding to go to, Craig.
I don't know. I am right in that age, so there's definitely a chance of it, but I had such an amazing time at the last National, even though I only went for one day, that I think I got to go again. It'd be fun to do like a proper overnight too.
You were signing autographs and everything, right?
Oh, stop.
Oh, Rob, you had the autographed.
Yeah, what are you talking about? You were a star there set up.
No, listen.
Oh my gosh, please.
So, Carmine, are you planning on going to Chicago next year?
I don't know. I've thought about it. I'm trying to take that leap. Like, I remember one of your earlier podcast episodes, which is great because I really have come up like listening to a lot of your episodes and learning from, everything that you have dropped out there. And I remember you saying, like taking a leap at some of the bigger cards. And that's what I did with the Tiger. And now I'm taking a leap at some of the bigger shows, like when I went to the San Francisco card show. And just like jumping in and not knowing exactly what's going to happen, but taking, a little bit of a risk or using my card money instead of buying cards to go to these shows. So I'm going to the Burbank show for all 4 days.
Ah.
Hopefully our boy Ken, he said he's 1 foot in, 1 foot out, might go to the Burbank show at Sports Card Lessons. So I would love to meet him for the first time. But
Ken's not inviting you on the private jet?
Not yet.
Oh, damn. Maybe next time.
I know.
You'll get there.
But
You'll get there.
I mean, it's a financial move. I mean, it's $400 to split a table with my buddy Jack for 4 days. And then hotel and airfare is another $900. So I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm dropping, $1,200, $1,300, $1,400, not to mention food on traveling because, and Craig's talked about this before, and you have too, Rob, being in the Northeast in New York City and Connecticut, how many shows you guys have in that area. And I'm like,
our cup runneth over.
Yeah. And I'm like, I need to fill my cup. I can't even go to a lot of these shows. So, but Burbank,
you don't necessarily have to set up, right? Like to go to National, it doesn't mean you're setting up. You go there and you go there and you walk the show, I mean,
yeah, try walking. It's not all.
Yeah.
Carmine, have you been to a big show or you've just set up at one? Like, have you walked one?
No, I set up at the San Francisco card show. I set up at the Portland card show, which is a cool kind of like mid-size, probably like 75 tables. The San Francisco one was like 200 tables. Burbank,
that's a nice size. 200's a nice size.
Yeah. And but that's a good idea because I've heard the national prices, and I remember you mentioning it, Rob, are really an investment to go set up there. But I would totally be open to walking around and doing trade nights and then just meeting up with you guys and hanging out.
Listen, so between Ken and I, Sports Card Lessons, we definitely have a spot where we're setting up, right? So I think it's only one table. We are hoping for two. I think it's only one, but still like 1 6 or 1 8 foot table. Like we could really just make that the home base. And if you guys wanted to throw a couple cards in our showcases and stuff like that to try to move, like totally welcome to. You know, I know Ken's probably going to be there for the full like 5 or 6 days. I'm probably going to be there about 3 of them.
Wow.
But yeah, that doesn't mean that you need to go there to set up. No, not at all. For sure.
Okay. That's a good idea. And do you
Yeah.
think me and Craig can
Chicago in the summertime is amazing.
Can we get a chance to man you and Ken's lifeguard chairs at any point?
Listen, now you're pushing it. Now you're pushing it.
That's like the king's throne.
So listen, before we wrap up, because I know you guys are, you know, running out of time here. So you guys are on episode 10. First of all, congrats for that, right? Because this was something that you guys weren't sure if it was going to work, how it was going to come out. What are your thoughts now after 10 episodes? You guys are 10 episodes in. I mean, to me, the big milestones that you really hit in doing a show like this are episode 10, probably 20 or 25, 50, and then 100, right? Like really, so 10 is your first kind of big milestone to hit. So are there any what are your thoughts on how the podcast has gone? Are there any episodes that stand out to you above others?
What do you think, Craig?
I think about the moment last week. I rewatched the clip multiple times where you were talking about your Drew Brees one-on-one autograph, and we just had a good laugh about it afterwards. And it was such just like genuine laughter. And I think that's like what we're really getting out of this is we're just having fun doing it. And we're both pretty active and have a lot of stories to share. So at no point during this so far have I been like, damn, what are we going to talk about? There always seems to be things that happen, and you and I, we have a good time with this, and the feedback's been good. So no plan, just kind of taking it week by week, but it's been a lot of fun so far. And you've been a tremendous help, Rob, as well. You're the trailblazer. All right. You showed us how to do it right.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Carmine, what about you, man? Like, are there any episodes that really stand out to you? Or
I really liked the Mount Rushmore one, just because
I like that one too. That one too because you guys really set like the visual.
Yeah. Thanks, Rob. And it kind of reminded me of your pyramid of collecting, which was quite a long while ago that you did that episode. But you know, you're talking about goats over prospecting and which, quarterbacks and different type of guys. And then, vintage. And then, of course, Mickey Mantle and the Hulkster were at the top. So I like those episodes that you can go back and reference, like, Craig being a teacher. My mom was a college professor for 40 years and just retired. And so I think we both have that, like, wanting to give back, wanting to whatever little knowledge or ability we have to share. We just love to, like, share that back, whatever we can give, and then include other people. And so I feel like with that Mount Rushmore, it's tangible things that you can look at and to consider, like, oh, what is really important as the foundational pieces of my collection, or even the foundational pieces of my show inventory. And then it was so funny last episode when Craig was talking about how his buddy told him to reconsider his own Mount Rushmore when trying to buy a Pulisic. And I was like, that's so great to have those foundational things to look back on and just remember, like, the cliff notes of what your collection should look like in your own mind.
I liked definitely and all that and all the episodes you guys mentioned so far, but another one that stands out to me was, I think it was 2 weeks ago, and it was about being comfortable with your collection. And I think that's where that JJ Redick story really originated. And so I remember the JJ Redick, and I'm like, wow, I need to hear the rest of this JJ Redick story now. And I think I even texted you guys about it, like, as I was listening to it, like, I need to know about this. And also it's crazy because when you have a platform, right, like you guys have now, people are listening to what you're saying, and you guys are invoking emotion. Because Carmine, when you picked up that Lob City card, right, it immediately brought me back, and you guys spent a little bit of time talking about Lob City, where they ranked, right? Like, look at that. I mean, it's a beautiful card. Holy moly, it's a beautiful card. And I think about where I was at in my life when Lob City, when Chris Paul finally made the jump right to the Clippers, and I can remember Blake Griffin saying, "Man, it's gonna be like Lob City," and it was like, whoa, you know, and it was like, it's like by you making that purchase, you probably weren't thinking about the show. You weren't thinking about anyone else other than you and why you wanted that card and what that card would mean to you. You brought that to your show. And because you guys brought that to your show, that sent me down my own mental rabbit hole about Lob City, where I was at in my life during those years and how far I've come in my life. So it's pretty crazy that, you know, what you can really spark in someone's mind when they're listening to you guys just kind of banter.
Yeah,
Wow. That was
that's
deep.
interesting.
No, I mean, we try to provide value.
Yeah.
So every episode include a tidbit that's, you know, our own experiences that hopefully someone out there can relate to. You know, thought-provoking conversation, I think.
Yeah. And I love how many laughs and smiles and, you know, just good times that we're having too. And like part of the escape of the hobby. And so before we let you go, Rob, you mentioned the JJ Redick PC, which, you know, to throw it back on you, was inspired by you going back to collecting and the Gene Okerlund and the Phil Rizzuto and the John Stockton guys who aren't super expensive, but guys who were important and influential in your, you know, sports fandom. And so before we let you go, I was curious, why did you think now was the time to dive into those PC items?
Well, you know, I think kind of half answering what I had said before, like I think when the market is super uncertain, you know, when values, you don't know what they're doing or where they're going. It's one thing if if markets are completely stable, right? If every card in the world was worth $1 and you knew they weren't going up, they weren't going down, collect what you love, it would be pretty simple. But when you're going through some market volatility, but you still want to be active in the hobby, and not just active in the hobby, because you can be active without buying. But I know the lane that I'm in. Part of my activity, part of my participation is required, like pie chart, is purchasing cards. So I still need to scratch that itch. You know what I mean? It's like I'm addicted. Like I still need to scratch that itch. Like I want to buy something that I love that is meaningful. So I went down the rabbit hole, and on top of maybe being priced out of the Hulk Hogan market for a little while or not wanting to spend too big of money on a Hulk Hogan card, I also don't know a single Mean Gene Okerlund collector. I've never even heard of someone having a Mean Gene PC. So I think immediately I probably put myself like in the top 5 worldwide of Mean Gene, you know, PCs, you know, and I would imagine, Carmine, you're probably right there with your I bet JJ Redick's probably got more collectors than you think, actually. But
Yeah.
you know, I think, you know, so I wanted to do something that was unique and safe. And don't get me wrong, I'm still spending money, you know. It's like, you know, I got the black and gold select 1 of 1 Mean Gene. That's the most expensive card I've gotten of him, and that was $250. So
Wow.
that's not anything to sneeze at.
Wow.
It's still a $250 Mean Gene Okerlund card. You know, I got one of his autograph cards from the NWO WCW set that was 200. So it's like, you know, I've you know, I've probably invested about $1,000 into this set, but it's been so much fun. It's been so much fun doing it and curating it and seeing people's responses to it. You know, people are like, "Oh my God, Mean Gene," you know, like, you know, it's cool.
It's fun. That's the key word there. Fun.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
having fun. And if you're not having fun, think about your Mount Rushmore. What do you want to be picking up? But yeah, that's very inspiring. You are the Mean Gene collector. It's what you like. Figure out what you like and stick to it.
They're like, "Yeah, let me introduce you to my buddies. You know, Craig, he's the you know, he's the Pulisic guy, and Carmine, man, if you want anything flawless, anything chunky patches, he's your guy. Rob, Mean Gene."
Love that
Yeah.
identity.
Don't
words.
mention your collector's edition Hulk Hogan purple that only a few people have ever gotten their hands on.
Yes, the PMG, man. Let me tell you it's definitely one of those cards that I'm like, did I spend that much money on a Hulk Hogan card? It's the most expensive Hulk Hogan card I've ever bought, but I love it though. It's pretty. Thank you.
Well, Craig, what do you think? We're coming up on an hour here with our buddy. I think. What else do you guys have to say in closing remarks?
This was just a good time. This is talking like we normally do. Again, going back to what we're saying, hopefully we all provided some value. Rob, you do the hobby the right way. I like to put it simply. So you keep up the good work. You keep inspiring. Thank you for helping us get to this point. And, we hope to follow in your footsteps.
Well, I appreciate you guys having me on. I appreciate me being the first guest, and I'm pretty sure I suggested that a couple times. I'm like, I better be the first guest. I think I actually said that to you guys, and was it a text message or something? I'm like, I better be the first guest on there because
it was a no-brainer.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it, man. You guys are doing incredible stuff, and you guys are going to be, definitely, in those top 10 lists next year, for podcasts and content creators, because the content is there. It's high quality stuff, and you guys are adding something to the hobby. You're not just taking up space. You're genuinely adding something to it. So it's been a privilege and a pleasure coming on.
Thanks a lot, Rob. Man,
home,
what a guest number one. Episode 10, guest number one, and hopefully many more to come. But yeah, we really appreciate the impact that you had on us, Rob, and the rest of the hobby. And I still remember our first deal together when I hit you up and I said, hey,
the Magic Johnson?
The Magic Johnson National Treasures Game Gear on-card auto with a big patch numbered out of 25. And I threw out this offer to Rob, and he said, you know what, I'll give it to you since you're a listener, and I appreciate you. And
is that what I said? Oh,
yeah.
Nice,
and I
man.
was like, I really, and then we stayed in contact through that. And then I did that video for you and Amil when I was editing it, and you guys at National.
Yep.
And, I just really appreciate the kindness that you've showed to me and Craig, and helping us along this journey, and just being a good guy in the hobby. I mean, there's a lot to be said for just like putting out good morals, good lessons, good values.
Good family, man.
Yes. And the cards are just a vehicle to express those things that, like you said, you evoke emotion in people too.
Yeah. Absolutely. Do you have a sportscast zinger before we wrap up? And do you have a Carmine original maybe that you've been stewing on in the vault? Because I saw your greatest hits video you had, and he was speeding in a school zone. And I don't know about Jelly, but he sure likes to jam.
Yeah, breaking the law, speeding in a school zone
Yep.
is my one for when somebody's running away from the pack on football, because it kind of makes sense, and and it's a little bit corny, on brand for our show. And then the one that I feel like is appropriate for you, Rob. I mean, since you're a post player, Craig enters the ball into the post. Rob Girard has patented step down, and some people like jelly, but Rob prefers jam.
Love it.
All right, Craig, you're our exit guy. How do you want to take us out?
I'll see you next week for Secret Santa.
Can't wait. Thanks, Rob.